podcast about your journey in music, how you got to where you are now. Talk to us about where you grew up. Where did you grow up?
So I was actually an Air Force baby. So I grew up all over the world. Was
Okay.
born in Florida. Grew up most of the place in Germany. Went to elementary school in Germany. Las Vegas, and then we finally settled in Buffalo, New York, which is where both my parents are from, for middle school and high school.
Wow. You went to school in elementary school in Germany. What was that like?
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, we went to an international school, so it was all English. But it was great because we had, like we had to take German like as your home country is what it was called, home country. And not only did we like learn the language, but we also learned like the traditions that they would do and all of that. So like we would appreciate the culture that we were in. It was so much fun. And I was like sad to come back to the U.S. Because I loved it so much, and I didn't have any memory of the U.S. I had left when I was 3.
Hmm.
So it also was really funny because when you live on a base, like across in a different country, there's no commercials. The commercials are all like military U.S. made stuff. So when I
Oh
got
wow.
to the U.S., I was like, "What is all of this? This is awesome!"
So if you turn the TV on, you would see what German programming, and then cut in between would be like Marine videos and Air Force videos and
So
stuff.
we lived on base. So we had like American programming. We had like the like main like 7, and then we had like Cartoon Network and stuff like that. But then yeah, it would just be like advertisements for like stuff on base, or like events that were happening on base.
Oh, okay.
Or like public service announcements of like, make sure like when you go off base that you're representing the US well, and stuff like that.
That's funny.
Yeah, and then like coming back and seeing Nickelodeon cartoons with like all those types of commercials, it was very different.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, I guess it would make sense if they're probably trying to they could restrict the commercials on the base to what what's happening there instead of like showing you commercials for toys and whatnot happening in the States.
Exactly, exactly.
Funny. Well, how did you get into music?
I was always just loved music from like when I was really little. Apparently, I was like obsessed with watching like Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid and like all those Disney movies and Barney and
Hmm.
Sesame Street and all that. But really, I was in elementary school. We had a really amazing theater teacher who she was actually just a third grade teacher, but she did a bunch of theater. And a really amazing music teacher. And like I remember learning music theory in like kindergarten, first, second grade, like
Wow.
very basic. But we were doing like he had a felt board, like a big felt board that we would go up and like place the notes on and stuff. So just have I was really lucky to have a really amazing education all through there, all through middle school and high school.
Hmm.
So I kind of was always doing it, I guess.
What was the first instrument you picked up? Piano?
I was voice first,
Oh,
but yeah,
voice.
instrument would be piano. Yeah, I was I loved singing so much, and then I wanted to play along with myself, so that was the first one that I learned.
How old were you when you picked up piano?
I think I started lessons when I was like 5 or 6.
Oh, wow, very
Um,
young.
yeah, but then I had a really, really terrible teacher in 6th grade, so I quit actually,
Oh.
just because she was awful. She was so mean. So I quit, and I didn't start playing again until high school, because started writing in high school, and I couldn't play the stuff that I was writing. So I found myself like learning to play the piano because I wanted to play my own stuff, and then
Mhm.
also going to like other scores and studying those. So it was like I have like a formal training, I guess, for a few years as a young kid, but then it was really just me like refiguring stuff out.
Oh, okay. And you said you started writing in high school. Were you writing just your own songs, or were you trying to compose? I mean, I know you're a composer and like you arrange music and stuff, but that probably was further down the line.
No, actually, that's how I started.
Oh, wow.
Like I mean I was writing, but mostly what I was doing was like big old arrangements, and like I used to love arranging and writing for marching band because I did marching band.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's like a bunch of like I have so many marching band shows that I wrote with my best friend because he also loved writing and was a composer. So we would like work on these things together and like send them back and forth. So somewhere in the depths I have like a bunch of marching band shows. I started doing choral arrangements too because I loved choir.
Hmm.
So even though I was writing original stuff, it more was like in that world of doing like lots of arrangements and stuff, to get into that. And then I started really writing my own songs and doing full scores and all of that. But I actually didn't apply to go to school for composition either, just because I didn't think that that was like something people did, I guess. I was
Hmm.
going for music education. And my first semester, I was like playing some stuff I had written for people, and they were like, "You're really good. Like you should like try to get into the composition program." And I was like, "Okay, I guess." And then I added composition one semester in, and ended up doing both for the entire way through.
Wow. Where'd you go to school for
I went to
music?
the Crane School of Music at SUNY Potsdam, way
Wow.
upstate New York.
Did you have to like apply to get into school and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, yeah. But I was for music education at first, and then got in for music education, did the one semester, and then added composition. I mean, it was really funny because like I'd been writing mostly like tonal stuff, like that's like what I like. I'm a music theater guy, like
Hmm.
I can write other stuff. But before my audition, I was so nervous that I in like 3 days whipped together this really obscure saxophone solo that was like the most avant-garde thing I've ever done. And the professors loved it. And I was like, thank God, because this is like not who I am. And then
Right.
I like strolled into composition lessons like, I want to write a musical.
Wow. Well, then so from graduating high or college, what was the next step for your musical journey?
So one of the biggest things was just like a random chance I took where a good friend of mine from college said, "Hey, my buddy has been from high school has been working at this theater company out in California. I'm in wine country in Sonoma for the past like 3 4 years, and they need someone this summer. Do you want to apply?" And I was like, "Sure, I guess." So I applied, I interviewed, I got the job, and I like 4 days after graduating flew to California where I had never been. To go to Sonoma, which again, I knew no one. I like sort of had met like via FaceTime my friend's friend.
Hmm.
But it was really exciting to be like, here we go. And it was so cool because they basically what they do over one summer, they do four brand new shows that are a mix of like cabaret and full scale show.
Hmm.
So it's all brand new arrangements, all brand new orchestrations. And we're talking like 20 24 songs a show, right? So
Wow.
over 4 months, there was only two of us that were really actively doing these arrangements. So it was just like, you gotta whip out like two arrangements a day, and then we'd have a big read through, and then we'd have to do two orchestrations a day. And like there was no other option. The rehearsals started next week. Like the actors were arriving, so it
Oh
was
my
really
gosh.
crazy. Um, well, and it was like the best place to just experiment too, because like I'm really proud of some of those arrangements, and some of them are perfectly fine, and I like learned something from all those, like, well, that didn't work the way that I wanted it to, but
Mhm.
it's still fine. So it was the perfect place to just like experiment all of that with a band, with a full choir, an actual like full production team. To be able to do that quickly, I feel like was like years of experience in one summer.
Yeah. Wow. Well, not knowing how to play, and maybe you do know how to play every instrument, but in a big orchestra, I'd assume it would be. How is it? How difficult is it trying to write and like think in your mind like how the horns are going to sound, or the this is going to sound, or the choir is going to sound? Like, how do you put all that together?
We're lucky now to have Finale and Sibelius where it can play back so you can like kind of hear what it's going to sound like, even though it's not like 100% the way it's going to sound like. But I was a music education major, so
Mhm.
I was forced to learn every instrument, at least like at a
Oh, okay.
very basic level. Because in theory, I could teach high school band tomorrow. I definitely should not do that. But in theory, I have a degree that says I can do that.
Yeah.
So I at least had a basic understanding, and then I also had to take orchestration classes all
Mhm.
through college. And along with my composition stuff, we had to write for every instrument. I did a bunch of like full orchestra stuff, full band stuff. So yes, it's hard-ish because like obviously I can't play everything, but that's why like I know the very big I know a lot about each instrument, what it can do, how it can do it. But then I
Mhm.
always check in with players, especially like the combo players, the guitar and the drums and the bass. Like I always check in with a couple of my friends who are those players because like those are just so specific.
Mhm.
But like the strings and stuff, unless I'm doing like crazy harmonics or anything, like it's pretty basic. Same thing with the horns. The woodwinds get a little particular, but
Mhm.
in general, I know the basis, and then if I have a player who's like, this isn't possible, then I can edit it.
Okay. Yeah, that's fascinating to me. I always thought about that. Like the people that are orchestrating all this music, like, do they know how to play all these instruments? But I guess with like music theory, you kind of know what goes with what and how it's kind of supposed to go. I would.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of practice. Like it takes a lot of listening. I think that was something that I was always surprised about in my composition lessons was just how I'm like listening examples every week that I would get were just as important as me writing because it was I'd go to the library, get the full score, and follow along while like, hey, I really liked this part. Why did I like this? Analyzing all of those different sections, and that's really how I got to like know what I liked, like little tricks I can do to make it sound that way. And now like I'm fake orchestrating a lot into Logic with all the fake instruments. So it's also been fun to like take my actual knowledge of what it would be like when you're working with live players, and then
Mhm.
also combine it with the electronic stuff and like all the little neat tricks to like sort of cover up the fact that it's all fake.
Sure, sure. That's fascinating. Like you just said something now. I forgot where I was going to go with it. But so orchestrating these. Oh yeah, you're talking about you'd get the composition and then you'd listen to it and then you'd flip through like what the sheet music or something.
Yeah, yeah. It was one of my favorite things in the library. They had something called the oversized score section, and it
Mm-hmm.
was for the scores that are like as large as people's bodies that are just like so huge. And sometimes it's because the orchestra is too big, but sometimes it's because it's like an absurdist piece where it's like a map that you have to follow, like standing over it. So I would go and check. I would just pick one, as long as I could find a recording, because a lot of sometimes it's hard to find recordings. And yeah, I would listen through and I'd like find exact moments that I'd like. And it could be as short as like 2 beats that I'm like, I'm obsessed with this. Why do I love this so much? And then just do a deep dive of like, is it the tonality? Is it the chord structure? Is it the orchestration specifically? Like, what is it that is drawing me to that?
Mm-hmm.
So now, like when I write, it's funny because it's very rare that I'm like, this is a brand new idea that I've never heard of in anything in my life. Because there's always some inspiration
Sure.
that you're drawing from, that sort of is the seed to everything I write. But yeah, that's the listening and like looking at scores, I think is just as important as actually writing. And I've been teaching composition now to students, and that's always my biggest thing is we spend almost more time listening than we do writing because you can't really do that in class. It's
You're
like
right.
let's
Right.
all write together. Yeah.
Right. Well, from the Sonoma theater that you're a part of, what did you do from there?
So then I got a job at an amazing company called iTheatrics here in New York. And they're the ones who write and adapt all the high school edition, junior, and kids musicals for like Music Theater International, R&H, Sam French. So I got a job with them doing copy work, but then also helping adapt those shows, music directing workshops. So one, I was employed in New York, which was like amazing.
Awesome.
Because then it's one of the best parts about them is they let everyone who works there like also pursue things outside of the company because me working on a show off Broadway and them giving me a little bit of time to do that then gives the company more legitimacy because hey, look, our employees are also actively working. It's like
Mhm.
professional development almost.
Sure.
So they allow us to do that. So uh besides them, because like what a better way to again become a better writer than like diving deep into these scores that I love and helping adapt them into 1 hour versions because you just get to know them like the back of your hand.
Mhm.
um and then also music directing and working with students, which I love. But along while I was doing that, I started gigging around the city at the West End Lounge, which closed during the pandemic, which like breaks my heart because like I know so many people who got their start there.
That's
um
too bad.
yeah, it's really sad. And then that led me to 54 Below shows, and that sort of all took off in that world. But then I also did the BMI Musical Theater writing program, and that's where I met my main writing partner, Kate Leonard, who I
Mhm.
worked on Ratatouille with, and we've done a couple of other shows and have some that are in process at the moment.
That's awesome. Well, tell me about Ratatouille because that one kind of blew up for you. I mean,
Yeah,
it
just a
did
little
blow
bit.
up. Yeah. I mean, you got on James Corden with that. You did a bunch of huge things. How did that start and what kind of took it to the next level?
Yeah, it was all through TikTok, and the first thing, like, I, as many people did, got into TikTok at the beginning of the pandemic because I found it was like a form of escapism for me. It was
Mhm.
really the only place I could go where it wasn't 24/7 terrible news.
Sure.
Um, and I wasn't a creator at that point, but eventually I started seeing these videos of accompanists playing a song, and they would go like, "Here's the wizard and I, bum 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 bum, and I'll stand there," and then they play the rest of the song,
Hmm.
and you get to sing along with them,
Hmm.
which I thought was so cool. And I had a bunch of like fun arrangements and recordings and stuff that I'd already done. I was like, "Oh, I could probably post these. That would be fun." And I started to post them, and I got a little bit of a following. And then Avatar: The Last Airbender dropped again on Netflix, which is one of my favorite shows of all time. I've been obsessed with it since I was a kid. I have a tattoo of it. Like,
Dude, that's so
oh yeah,
rad.
I love
That's cool.
I love it so much. That then it when it redropped on Netflix, all of this new generation was becoming obsessed with it, and it like brought me so much joy. And I've been thinking about writing a musical about it for the longest time. So I just wrote a parody song from the musical, the would-be musical, and that was my first video that really took off. I got like 100,000 views on it, which was like
Wow.
big for me at the time.
Sure.
Um, so then I was like, oh, people like this parody content. So then a couple months later, I posted this video that was a riff off of a viral song on TikTok called New York Summer by Louisa Melcher,
Hmm.
that led to the grocery store musical. And
Okay.
that really took off and got me on Good Morning America and Inside Edition. And then I was sort of like looking for the next thing to do.
Uh-huh.
And that a buddy of mine who, I don't know if you've ever seen the video I'm an Accountant. It was also went viral on TikTok. It's like
Maybe I have. I'd have to see it again.
if you've never seen it, look it up. It's by Rocket
Okay.
Patera. It's so funny. He tagged me on Emily Jacobson's original video of Ratatouille, saying, "Hey, is this the next grocery store musical?" And apparently it was, and more. Um, so I listened to her song and I was like, "Oh, this is funny. Like this is really like Mimi. I'm
Hmm.
gonna take it and I'm gonna give it a full Broadway treatment because I love the idea of taking like something so dumb and silly and just giving it like a full Broadway treatment because
Yeah.
it's my type of humor.
Right.
I never know if people are gonna like it, but apparently they did.
They did.
Um, so I posted that. I thought some people would like it based on like the success of Grocery Store, but I never thought it would lead to I mean like a worldwide movement at this point.
Hmm.
We raised nearly $2 million. I think we're at like 1.97 or something million dollars, which is just like insane for the Actors Fund.
That's
Um,
so cool.
and what a it really felt like doing theater again. I mean, we put the whole thing together in less than a month. I got the call from the producers on December 4th, and we didn't start writing until December 6th. And from there, for those 2 weeks, starting December 6th, I would write or arrange a song every day, and then it would go to Macy Schmidt, our brilliant orchestrator, and then it would go right to the copyist, and then it was just a conveyor belt for 2 weeks because we had to record with the orchestra. And it was actually like 13 days since we did the first arrangement.
Wow.
So yeah, it was really fast. Which I mean, going back to Transcendence and Sonoma though, like that's what it felt like again. I was like, there's
Hmm.
no other option. Like you don't have time to think about it. You have to get it out there.
Sure.
Um, which also is how I write. Like when I get in my head too much, I don't like the stuff that I put out. Like I just have to do it because if it's not right, then it's definitely not right. You know.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so I mean, obviously make edits and stuff, but if the basic idea is not right, it's not
Then
right.
yeah, right, right, right. Well,
Um,
how did like getting on Good Morning America? You said in the Inside Edition, like that was even before the Ratatouille thing, and with the grocery store thing. Tell me about like getting those calls and like was that pretty like wild? I'm sure.
Oh, it was so absurd because I had posted it on TikTok, but then someone else had took that and moved it to Twitter and did a big feed that was like, this is why TikTok is so great. It has these awesome duet features and
Mhm.
like explained each of it. And that is really what made it go viral. It did well, like it did really well on TikTok. But it was in no way the way that it took off on Twitter because that is where, like journalists and news organizations are not really following random TikTok
TikTok,
trends.
right?
Um, but so I woke up one morning from a text from a friend that was like, Tyler Oakley reposted your video. And I was like, what? Like, I'm not even on Twitter. I deleted Twitter like 6 years ago, just because it was too toxic for me and like I
Yeah.
couldn't handle it. So I re-downloaded it and I was like, oh my God, there's like a million views on this from like since yesterday. So I just started like commenting on everyone, like, that's my video.
That's
Um,
cool. Yeah, smart.
yeah, well, I was like, I gotta capitalize on this.
Right.
Um, so then, then I just got a DM on Twitter. It was actually, I got a DM on Twitter from a producer at Good Morning America. They emailed me through my website. They they Instagram DM'd me, and then somehow they got my mom's number. They called my mom.
You're like stalker.
I know, but I was like, how? Like, I have no idea where that would like a high school field trip form. Like, when was the last time I put down my mom's number for me?
Right.
I was like, so yeah, I got that call and I was like, I guess we can do this. And then it was the same thing with Inside Edition, and they were that was even weirder because it was like the right after Good Morning America aired, I got that email. And I was like, do you want to do Zoom? And they were like, actually, FaceTime is better. And I was like, okay, great. Then they're like, actually, are you in New York? We can send a crew to your apartment. And I was like, yes. And like, I had already had COVID, so I was like, I'm okay with that. And we can socially distance and wear masks and all that stuff. If you guys are. And they're like, yeah, that's fine. We've been doing it. I was like, cool. So these like two guys show up at my apartment. It was a camera guy and the actual interviewer. And we just like all stayed 6 feet apart. And like as soon as the only time that I took my mask off was when I was speaking, and then I put it right back on, and we were like very far apart. But it was like absurd to have like a camera in my apartment, because you're also like I'm a clean person in general. Like my apartment is nice, but it's not nice enough for a camera crew to show
television.
up. Yes, and I had like 40 minutes notice, and they're like, great, we can come up right now. And I was like, ah.
Yeah. Oh
And I actually think like the best part of that interview was like both of these guys, they were like middle-aged, like white, very straight men. And they were like, we really love your apartment. And they kept saying like, this is so nicely decorated. This is so and I was like, thank you. Like, that is an accomplishment. Like, thank you so much.
I appreciate that. Wow. Wait, so you had COVID? You're the second person I've talked to today that has COVID, that had it.
Yes. So here's the actual thing is I was never tested because it was right at the beginning of March. So it was before everything shut down, and I felt fine, but I lost my sense of taste and smell, which like no one knew was a symptom at that point.
Right.
So by the time like I should have gotten tested, everyone was in like deep lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time the antibody test came around, like a couple of months later, I was back with my parents, and there was like no antibody tests around for like an hour and a half. And I was like, well, I had the symptoms, and everyone that I worked with tested fully positive, including like someone who, because I'd been on a work trip like the week previously, and we had like one of the not huge hotel room, one of the hotel rooms with like the where it's like more of an apartment with like two rooms,
more rooms in it, like a
exactly
like a suite.
Yeah, and he had tested positive for COVID. I had the symptoms. All my friends tested positive. So like most likely, but I don't have a piece of paper that says I had it.
That might be a better thing though. The government doesn't know that you had it.
It's like, yes, I never ever.
That's bizarre. Yeah, I was talking to somebody earlier. That was in Nashville, and they had it, and they were telling they got it in like Atlanta, and same thing, like lost sense of smell and taste. And I'm like, well, what does that even look like? And he goes, I had my girlfriend's nail polish, and I was smelling it like up to my nose, and I couldn't smell anything. And I was like, that's crazy to me.
It was really upsetting because I also there were so many random things that were wrong with this, but I have terrible allergies. So every single year, right around the beginning of March, I get like just really, really bad sinus, not necessarily sinus infection, but like it's not bizarre of me to like have random stuff like that happen around that time. But I'd never lost my sense of taste and smell. So I even went to an ENT, which like now is horrifying because like no one was wearing masks, and I'm like, there I am, like walking up, and he was like, yeah, you're fine. It's just really, it's just like really bad allergies, and put me on steroids, and that was it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, which is like horrifying. Thinking about that now. But yeah, it was like I remember I got a salad at work, and I had hot sauce, and I just poured hot sauce onto my chicken salad. Well, on my salad with chicken, because I'm from Buffalo, so it makes sense. But like so much hot sauce, and I couldn't taste it, and I almost started crying because I didn't understand like what was happening. And because it wasn't a symptom, like no one knew
Yeah.
this was a thing. And then like about a week and a half later, when I was like, no, it was like a week later. I remember I was in my apartment because this like lockdown had hit that at that point, and like got up to go to the bathroom, and I walked by a candle, and I went, "Did I just smell something?" And I like grabbed the candle and like forced my face into the candle to smell it, and it was like so faint, but I could smell it again. Um, yeah, and it's really funny
Wow.
because it's like I still have like mild PTSD from, and I've talked to a lot of people who still kind of do, where like if I'm eating something, you're not always actively thinking about how something tastes when you're eating it, like you're like
Mhm.
passively eating. But then I realized I didn't. Do I know what this tastes like? Did I just taste it? And then I'm like, I don't remember tasting it. And it's because like you're not paying attention. And then I take
Right.
another bite, like hoping that I can
Still have your
taste it.
sense of taste.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you, like, how at what point are you like, uh-oh, like what if this is all gone? Like what if I can never smell or taste anything again? Like I mean, I'm sure that was such a worry in your mind.
It was because it's like what it like I don't know. I've never this has never happened to me before. And it's just it was so bizarre. That really was something I was like, how am I gonna live with this? Like I can never taste anything again. Like it's like I love food. It's like one of the joys in my life. And I remember
Mhm.
I love wine. Like I had learned everything I did when I was
Yeah, in
out in wine
Sonoma.
country.
Yeah, I was gonna
And
say.
like not being able like I remembered I got a nice glass of wine like one night like I went out with my friends and I just it tasted like water and I was like this is so devastating. Like I love that I love it so much like discussing wine and tasting different things and like that's gone. Like just all of that's gone.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. How long did it take? Like a week or two before it came
It was
back?
like a week and a half, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. The guy I talked to earlier said the same thing. He was doing hot sauce like as much as he could to see if like why is this not burning my mouth? Like what is
Yeah.
going on? Like I can't imagine that. That's well. I'm glad you're better, man. That's scary.
Yeah, it was really terrifying.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, especially just the unknowns. Like that's really what it was. And like no one knew in New York. Like that's also what I was thinking about. I saw shows. Like I saw a show that week. Like I went to work, I was on the subway, no one was wearing masks. Like it's just so scary when you think about it that way.
Well, that's I mean, and especially New York, and everyone's living on top of each other. That's why it
Mhm.
got so rampant so fast there. But I'm in San Diego, and LA is like back, really bad again too. And they
Yeah.
were bad, but not. It's the thing with New York though is it's just so condensed. It was like San
Mhm.
Francisco when it happened there. It was like, well, yeah, a lot of people are going to get it because everyone has to be in such close quarters.
Well, and like literally, all I would think about is the subway, and it's like you stand on that subway platform and like take the A train from 59th Street to 125th or to 125th, which is like the longest one like leg that I go on. That is a
Hmm.
solid 4.5 to 5 minutes on that subway where no one was wearing masks at that
Yeah.
point. You are like jam packed in there. Like how many? Yeah, you. I can't even think about it too much. Or yeah,
Yeah. And yeah, you weren't the only one on that subway that had it. I can tell you that much.
yeah, yeah.
So that's crazy. Well, let's get okay. So that all happened inside edition, and then you get the late late show. That was later. That was
Yeah,
the
but
second wave of the viral videos, right?
yeah, exactly. And they actually contacted me after the grocery store musical. I just got a random email, through like the contact page on my website that was like, "Hi, I'm a producer at the Late Late Show. We'd love to talk to you." And I was so confused at first because I was like, "About what? Like, I'm not going to be a guest." Like you know
Right.
what I mean? It's like what like of course I'm going to take the meeting, but like what are you talking about? So I took a meeting and they were like, we want to collaborate in some way in like doing something that is TikTok-y. So
Mhm.
then we like I chatted with the producer and a writer that I was on with. We sort of came up with the idea of like, okay, we'll like sort of do the grocery store, but better and more planned out. And then
Mhm.
like had another meeting a few days later, and then that's when we settled on Thanksgiving. We're like, okay, great, we're gonna do Thanksgiving. It's like a month away. It's gonna be post-election, hope God willing that like there's not like that's the entire news cycle. Um, so we settle on that, and then it was just like lots of back and forth. It was really amazing. Like it was a truly collaborative process with the writer and the producers. And then they would like bring in whatever I'd send to James and the EPs, and then come back with notes from everyone. And it was collaborative, like so in a great way. So I wrote like 8 different versions for the first thing. I was like, I know that there's uh it's going to be like a hot mess of Thanksgiving, and here's like 8 different versions.
Yeah.
Of just like the one solo line, like just my video. Sent that to them. They picked the one that we ended up going with. So then from there, I was like, okay, let's workshop characters. So the writer and producer and I would like, okay, who's going to be at this crazy Thanksgiving? And we had like 15 different characters that then I wrote like little different versions for. And then it was just lots of back and forth as we like slowly nailed down what it was going to be. But I really didn't know who was going to sing it. What I was told was that it was going to be the Late Late Show Family Thanksgiving. So basically it was going to be I knew James was going to be my dad, and then everyone else was going to be band members from their amazing house band, or it was going to be like some of the writers and producers who are performers. So when like Kristen Chenoweth popped up for that second duet, I just like had no idea what was happening.
Yeah.
And then the cast just, kept growing.
That's so cool. That's so cool that you're involved that much through it, instead of them just going, we like what you did, so we're going to have you play this person on the show or whatever in this piece. But it sounds like you were like, the backbone of the whole thing, the whole bit.
Yeah, it was really crazy. Because it was very collaborative and like figuring all that out. But yeah, they'd come back with notes. I would give edits. And like it was all planned out. Every single one of those parts was very specifically written. And I was using like my classical music brain of counterpoint and making sure the different themes were heard. When one person was saying something important, trying to make the other parts not important, or like long notes so we can understand what they're saying. So all of that went into that, where like the grocery store was awesome because it was organic and it was the first one and it was TikTok and all that. Yeah. But this one I really wanted to be very specifically planned out, have like perfect harmonies. Very like Lin-Manuel at the end of his act ones. The way he builds into it is what I was thinking about. So yeah, it was really fun to also just go back and forth with them, because everyone on that team was just so lovely through the entire process. I like can't speak highly enough of all of them.
That's amazing. That's really cool to hear that, especially that they let you be that involved in the process. That's so cool.
Yeah, and it was really fun because like from the very first meeting, they said, a lot of times we explore things and they never make it to air. Of course, we will compensate you for your time, that we always compensate writers. But, it might not make it to air. So I always was more than okay with that. Like the fact that I'm even working with them is so cool. But like every single time I'd send something in, I was just waiting to get the email of like, thank you, we've decided not to go with it.
Yeah.
And it was literally we filmed on Tuesday, and it was the Friday before that I got the email from the producer like, hey, we're confirmed for Tuesday. Here's the Zoom link, blah, blah, blah. We're setting you up with the social team. And I was like, I guess it's happening.
And so it was all live? Did you have to do your part live and everything? Or did you guys get to pre-record kind of the whole bit?
All of the videos for the song stuff were all pre-recorded and like mixed and all of that. Because... you couldn't actually do it live.
Yeah, it wouldn't really work, right, with latency and all those
things. Like all of that. But the interview was filmed live. Live, because they film like at like 5 p.m. and then it airs at like 11 or whatever.
Was that pretty cool? Was that how was that going on the show, getting the interview? Was that nerve-wracking?
It was. It was just really bizarre in general because it was on Zoom. Like so there's like me and my computer, and then James at the studio where like the Zoom is coming through like an actual professional camera.
Right.
So it was just really bizarre, like being on Zoom, which is a platform that I'm just, all of us are on all the time. And like, there's James Corden and like, there's Patti LuPone popping up. Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
It was so bizarre. And yeah, I was always nervous just for that little interview. Cause I knew it was going to be like 30 seconds at max or whatever.
Right.
But it was just, I can't like speak highly enough because they were just so nice. As soon as I entered the studio, all the way through, the entire team was so lovely. And it was just so like, I had no idea. I really, that the reaction was genuine. Like, everyone in that cast, I admire so highly, that the fact that they said yes to do this like silly little song just like meant a lot to me.
Sure.
It's supposed to be dumb and silly and fun. And these are like Broadway legends who, like Audra giving a performance as the fire alarm, like the depth that she brought to that fire alarm. um, was just so lovely of all of them, and yeah, it's just I still sort of can't believe that it happened, because I make these videos because I think they're fun, and like
Mhm.
the world's a mess right now, and if like these like 39-second videos can like bring a little joy for that's all I can hope for, and
Mhm.
the fact that other people are enjoying it just makes me very happy.
I love that. I was watching your YouTube channel earlier. You have a video of yourself playing. You play. You play "Complicated" by Avril Lavigne, but you have it in like a very Disney-esque like sound. Like that was brilliant. Do you have any more of those in the works?
Yeah, I actually have a lot of those. I'm actually working right now on doing one of driver's license, because that's like the hit song at the moment.
Right, right.
Um, and just turning it into a Disney ballad. I like love doing that. I also did which this is very niche for me, but This Is Me from Camp Rock, like the Demi Lovato
Oh,
Jonas Brothers song. I
yeah.
did as a cut song from Dear Evan Hansen. And I'm very proud of that arrangement. I'm really proud of that arrangement. Um, so yeah, I love writing, but I also love arranging and doing just like weird stuff like that. And I think a lot of that goes back to like what I was doing in high school. Like that's the stuff I was doing in high school, like just like
Mhm.
fun, weird stuff like that. And that's also the cabaret scene here in New York, which I just love more than anything. Like 54 Below, like that's what people eat up. Like,
Oh, really?
and I eat it up. Like I think it's so amazing.
Oh, yeah, it's so creative.
And like one of my favorite ones I've ever done was One Last Time by Ariana Grande as a super ballad. And it is a heartbreaking song when you actually listen to the lyrics. It's like, one last time, I need to be the one who takes you home one more time. I promise after that I'll let you go, baby. Like it's real when you do it like really slow and like
Uh-huh.
very raw, and like the singer like really acted it like it was a musical theater thing. It is heartbreaking, like heartbreaking. And who would have thought with that silly little song, you know?
Sure. Yeah. That I mean, it's funny how you can take a song like that or any song at that matter and just if you the way you arrange it, it can give it a whole different meaning.
Well, and it's actually we also did this all the time in at the Sonoma Theater Company, Transcendence Theater Company. And I remember one of my friends, Matt Moisey, who's a brilliant orchestrator and composer and actor and singer and everything. He did a ballad version of "I Want to Dance with Somebody," and again, it is heartbreaking to hear it as a ballad. And then I was chatting with Dean Pitchford, who wrote Footloose,
Oh, wow.
and a bunch of other stuff, because I've gotten to know him really well over the years. And I mentioned that story or that arrangement, and he said, "Well, you know, it actually was originally written as a ballad." And the songwriters wrote "I Want to Dance with Somebody" as a ballad, and then the producers said, "We want this to actually be an up tempo," and they like were really debating whether to do it, and they decided to do it as an up tempo, but it was originally supposed to be a ballad. And listening to it that way, it is a very, very different song. Um,
I need yeah, I because I can only hear the upbeat one in my head, you know. I want to now I'm gonna go back and listen to it and just try to think of how it would sound like totally stripped down as like a ballad.
Well, and even like think about the lyrics as like if someone's longing, like imagine it on stage and they're like, "I want to dance with somebody. I want to feel the heat with somebody. I want to dance with somebody who loves me." Like it's
Mhm.
so sad when you
Sad,
think
yeah.
of it like that way. But when you have like the upbeat, you're like, "Yeah, I
I
want
wanna
to dance
dance
with
with
somebody
somebody.
too." Like that sounds great.
What a fun time. Yeah, that's funny. Well, so you have the Ratatouille, it's you're turning that into a Broadway show? Is that's what's happening?
Uh, Disney loves when that we've engaged with their content, but they have no further developmental process, is the line that I'm
Oh,
allowed to say.
got you. Okay. So as of now, it is what it is on TikTok.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. It was just for the actors' benefit that Disney gave us the grace to do that,
Mhm.
and it's it's funny because I've been seeing all of these illegal videos popping up on YouTube and TikTok and Spotify. Someone made a Spotify playlist, but it was all podcasts. Each song was a different podcast to like get away with it, like not being actually on Spotify.
Oh, that's
Um,
funny.
so I
They
keep
like
seeing,
label that as a podcast when you play the song.
yeah.
That's hilarious.
So even though there are no current developmental plans with Ratatouille, it will never die on the internet. I have a feeling.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because I did see you posted a picture on Instagram of the score at the end, so I didn't know if like that was a hint, like, oh, we're gonna try to get it onto to Broadway at some point.
I mean, I would love to see it have some life, of course, because I'm so proud of what we did. But I really am thankful to Tom Schumacher and the rest of Disney just for letting us do this one-time thing. And if they don't, I totally understand it because like they guard their intellectual properties very closely, and that's
Oh
what makes
yeah.
Disney Disney. So like I can't blame them for that. So of course I would really love to see it go further in some way, but I'm just really thankful that they even let us do this.
Yeah, that's really cool. What was the reason behind Ratatouille? Or was that your choice or
No, it was just that's what took off. Like that the arrangement that I did on TikTok of Emily's song took off, got a million views on my video alone. Between all of the uses of the sound, there's like 15,000 videos. I think it's over like 20 million views on TikTok alone if you combine all the uses of the sound.
wow.
And that's when people just started writing other songs for it. It was super organic. It happened completely organically, and I think that that's what was the magic of it. Is
Mhm.
the whole time I was like, oh, Disney is going to serve like a cease and desist,
Yeah,
but
that's what I would assume.
but it actually wouldn't have been possible because there wasn't a person who was in charge. Like
Oh.
people were just like I posted my video and that's all I did, and then other people uh started posting videos, and then other people started posting videos about how excited they were for this, and then press started covering the fact that this was happening. So like there wasn't like a person who said I'm writing this musical that Disney could have just been like no you aren't. It was
Right.
literally the entire community of TikTok that was putting this together. So they, unless they had like banned any use of the hashtag Ratatouille musical, it was not possible to like put it to a stop.
Mhm.
And I think that that's why it got as far as it did, was that it was organic and it showed that the love was there. Had someone just approached Tom Schumacher and said, I want to adapt Ratatouille, it would have been, get out of my office.
Right, exactly. How did you get into my office?
Yeah, I was going to say it. I don't know. His office is more closely guarded than our capital. Oh. Yeah. So I think that that's really why it took off in the way that it did. Was it was just organic, which is like really special.
That's
And I hope
amazing.
that we can do something like that in the future. And I'm exploring a couple of ways to do that right now, because what I really do love about it is the idea of this collaboration of people who've never been produced before from all over the world, who don't have the credits that you would need to submit for stuff like this.
Mhm.
It was just people put stuff out there and it resonated with folks. So how to take that and create a sustainable model that changes the way that we create theater in general. If you think about theater that happens in New York, any show, off Broadway, Broadway, off Broadway, it all takes years and thousands, if not millions of dollars to put together. And
Mhm.
this was done in a month with a significantly less budget than a Broadway show.
Sure.
And obviously, if you were actually mounting it, obviously the budget would have to be bigger because you need costumes and sets and blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah. But the idea of it is something really special. And I think that we should be looking at that as we move forward.
Mhm. That's amazing. Do you have any what's next for you? What do you have working on right now? Or what are you working on right
So much, actually, at the
now?
moment. I actually just finished like 2 days ago. We workshopped a brand new show called Dot and the Kangaroo, which is based on a beloved Australian novel that I'm working on with Kate Leonard, my lyricist, and a great book writer down from Australia, Daniel Stoddard, who reached out to Kate and I because he really wanted American Songwriter's Australian book writer, so that it was like the mix of musical theater, Australian story, and stuff.
Mhm.
And we just did a workshop of it down in Australia because they can actually like be in a room together performing live without
Oh,
masks, and like
that's cool.
like safe enough for them to do it there. So we just did a workshop of that, and I'm really excited for that piece. Because like I said earlier, I was a composition and education major, so I love education. I love working with students, and I think a lot of the content that is put out there that like isn't Disney or like very high level like DreamWorks or stuff,
Mhm.
is very bad. And it's because I think people are like, oh, it's for kids. It can just be,
Bad. Yeah,
yeah,
you
it can
can
be bad.
swear.
It can just be crap and no one cares. Uh, So I really think I'm trying to change the narrative on that because I think it's important to make really good, high quality content for students. And I know like Pascal Paul wrote James the Giant Peach, which is like very clearly a family show, but it's brilliant. It's like, don't get me wrong, I love Evan Hansen, I love Greatest Showman. I think James is their best score. It's brilliant. It is so good, but it was meant to be a kid show, which is not a bad thing.
Uh-huh.
So I'm trying to also, try to put out good content for kids and families.
Mhm.
Because I was exposed to good content when I was a kid, and that's when I was like, that's good music. And like, I know for a fact that if I had heard some of the stuff that is out there, I would have been like, that's terrible, that's shit, I don't want to do music.
Right.
Um, so I'm working on that, and then I also have a piece called "Breathe: Portraits from a Pandemic," which is a series of 5 short stories that I wrote one music for one of those. That is the book is by the author Jodi Picoult. She wrote My Sister's Keeper,
Oh wow.
and a bunch of other big books, and Timothy L. McDonald, who wrote James with Pascal Paul. They came up with these 5 stories about 2 people in the midst of the pandemic. And they wrote this they started writing right at the beginning of March, like at the beginning of the pandemic, because they really
Mhm.
wanted to capture where we were. But what I'm really excited about this piece um, is that it's not about COVID. It's not about 2020. It's this very intimate stories of couples or family that they just happen to be taking place in the middle of
Of
COVID.
the pandemic.
Um, so I'm really excited for that, and we're actually filming a concert version of it at the 92nd Street Y in February, and hopefully going to get that out this year with a cast album and everything like that. But
That's
those are the 2 big ones at the moment.
That's exciting. That's really exciting. Well, thank you so much, Daniel, for talking with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so fun. Like just just chatting.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, man. You're awesome, and I love what you're doing. It's amazing. I love the quarantine quiz that you had on your Instagram. You're playing
Thanks.
songs and you try to figure them out. Like that's all brilliant.
Uh, Thank you. I mean, that was really like right at the beginning of quarantine. Like while I actually still had COVID because I couldn't taste or smell at the beginning of those first ones. And it became a 100-day project of doing an arrangement a day, which was so fun. But and I've been thinking about doing it again, but like it was a commitment. Like
Oh, it's looked
once
like
a
it would be.
day.
Yeah.
Whew, it was a commitment.
Yeah, because it would probably take you a minute to figure out what song you're gonna do, and then figure it out, and then do it in a way that it would be, quiz worthy, so to speak. And
Yeah, exactly. It was like figuring out the piano, what the arrangement was going to be, if I'm going to
uh
sing it. Yeah, there
right.
were lots of pieces.
Well, that's amazing. I love what you're doing, and I have one more question for you before I let you go.
Yeah.
I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Yeah, just keep working and keep doing what you love and stay true to who you are and what your art is. And I think that if you just focus on that and keep your eyes on your own paper, as a wise Marcy Heisler once told me, is you go at your own pace, don't judge yourself by others, and just be true to yourself and your own art. And if you're passionate about it, I guarantee other people will be as well.
Bringing it backward.